Jessica and Charles were two people who had always thought that love stories were things that only happened in movies. Both of them were busy in their lives, too focused on their work and ambitions to even think about romance. Jessica was a young woman working as a graphic designer in a small advertising agency, and Charles was a pilot who spent most of his time flying across the skies. One summer afternoon, Jessica decided to take a small break from work. She felt drained from sitting in front of her computer all day and wanted some fresh air. Her friend Emma suggested they take a short trip to the countryside, where a hot air balloon festival was being held. Jessica had never been on a hot air balloon, and the idea of floating high in the sky sounded like an adventure. Without thinking much, she agreed. The day of the trip arrived, and Jessica felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as she stood on the field, watching the brightly colored balloons inflate one by one. The festival was a beautiful sight. Balloons of all shapes and colors filled the sky, painting it with vibrant hues. Jessica had never seen anything like it before. Just then, she noticed one particular balloon that looked different from the others. It was a deep shade of blue, with white clouds painted on it, making it look like a piece of the sky. She felt drawn to it and decided that was the balloon she wanted to ride. As she approached, she met the pilot who would be guiding the balloon. His name was Charles. He looked professional in his pilot's attire, yet there was a warmth in his eyes that made her feel at ease. Charles greeted her with a gentle smile and asked if she was excited for her first ride. Jessica smiled nervously. "Yes, but I'm a bit scared too," she admitted. Charles chuckled softly. "Don't worry, I've done this hundreds of times. You're in safe hands." Jessica took a deep breath and climbed into the basket, her heart pounding as the balloon began to lift off the ground. The feeling of rising slowly into the sky was both thrilling and terrifying, but Charles spoke to her in a calm, reassuring voice, explaining each step and making her feel safe. As they ascended higher, the world below them looked small and peaceful. The busy streets, the rushing people, and the noise of the city all faded away. They floated through the clouds, surrounded by silence and beauty. Jessica felt her worries melt away as she took in the view. She looked over at Charles, who was focused on guiding the balloon, and felt a sense of admiration for him. Here was a man who spent his life in the skies, bringing joy to people like her. After a while, Charles looked over and noticed Jessica gazing at the landscape with wide eyes. He smiled, realizing how much she was enjoying it. "It's amazing, isn't it?" he asked. "Yes," Jessica replied. "I never imagined it would feel like this. It's peaceful up here, like being in a different world." Charles nodded. "That's why I love my job. It's like I get to escape from everything for a while. Up here, nothing else matters." Jessica thought about that and felt a connection with his words. She had always been so focused on work and her busy life that she rarely took time to relax or do something adventurous. Being up in the air with Charles made her realize how much she had been missing out on. They talked about their lives, their dreams, and their fears as they drifted through the sky. Charles told her stories about his journeys, the places he had seen, and the people he had met. Jessica found herself laughing and sharing things she rarely talked about with others. She felt a strange warmth, a feeling she hadn't felt in a long time. She realized that Charles wasn't just a skilled pilot, he was kind, funny, and understanding. Hours passed like minutes, and before they knew it, it was time to start descending. Jessica felt a pang of sadness, wishing the ride could last longer. But Charles had to bring them back down, and soon they landed safely back on the ground. As Jessica stepped out of the balloon, she looked at Charles and said, "Thank you. This was one of the best experiences of my life." Charles smiled, his eyes softening as he looked at her. "I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was nice to have someone like you on board." They said the goodbyes, but Jessica couldn't stop thinking about him. She knew it was unlikely they would meet again, yet something inside her hoped otherwise. She returned home that night, unable to shake the feeling that she had left something important up in the sky. Days turned into weeks, but Jessica couldn't forget Charles. She thought about the peaceful moments they had shared, his kind smile, and the way he had made her feel safe. She didn't know if it was possible to fall in love in such a short time, but she felt that somehow, she had. One evening, as she was leaving work, she found herself looking at the sky, lost in thought. Suddenly, she heard someone call her name. She turned around, surprised, and saw Charles standing there, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. "Jessica," he said, a bit shyly. "I didn't know if I would see you again, but I couldn't stop thinking about you." Jessica felt her heart skip a beat. "Charles, what are you doing here?" Charles took a step closer. "I realized that I didn't just enjoy our flight together. I enjoyed being with you. I couldn't let you go without telling you how I felt." Jessica felt a smile spread across her face. She hadn't expected this, but she felt the same. I feel the same way, Charles, she admitted. They spent the evening together, walking through the city, talking about the dreams and hopes for the future. It was as if no time had passed since their balloon ride, and they felt the same warmth and connection they had felt in the sky. Over the following weeks, they continued to meet, their bond growing stronger with each day. Jessica learned that love could come from the simplest of moments, like sharing a quiet moment in the sky or a laugh in the park. Charles showed her a world she had never known, a world where love was about being present, about cherishing the small things. Months later, Charles invited Jessica to the same balloon festival where they had first met. This time, he had something special planned. As they floated high above the ground, with the city below and the clouds around them, he took her hand. "Jessica," he said softly, "you've shown me that love isn't something that happens in fairy tales. It's real, and it's here, with you. I can't imagine my life without you by my side." Jessica felt tears in her eyes as she looked at him, realizing just how much he meant to her. "I feel the same way, Charles." In that moment, with the world below them and love truly in the air, Charles asked Jessica to spend her life with him. And with a heart full of joy and certainty, she said yes. They floated back down, their hearts light, their love carrying them higher than any balloon ever could. And from that day forward, Jessica and Charles built a life together, full of laughter, adventure, and love that was as endless as the sky.